Everybody get
this off. That way, because I do have a small presentation first, and then we'll get into our crocheting.
I know a lot of people were excited for the crocheting earlier.
I'm so happy to hear that. And so for this, I am going to do a brief overview of crocheting in general, and then I'll teach you the very basics. And with the very basics, you'll be able to create a bunch of other things that you would like to make. And just to show you a couple of things that I have. So I may have a coaster that I made. I made a set of these. Let me unblur my background so that way it's easier to see. There you go. I made this sweater. And I know in the last camp I was in, we were talking about favorite video games. So this yarn is the Prismatic Shard yarn from Stardew Valley. It's dyed to match that. And then this is what I'm currently working on, which is another type of sweater, but this is like a granny square sweater. So with crocheting, all you need to know is the basics. And then once you know the basics, you can then use them in different ways to create different patterns. So we're gonna get started. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see. All right. All right, Mr. Isaac, let me know if you cannot see it.
I can see it, so I think everybody should be able to.
Okay, perfect. So for starting out, this is an introduction to crochet, and I have two pictures. I have an Afghan at the bottom, which is the one with the square pattern that someone is working on. And then I also have amiguris, which are little characters that you can crochet with chunky yarn. And once you know the basics of crocheting, you can then go on YouTube. You can then research on the internet how to find the patterns to these and then learn to make either the Afghan, amiguris, anything else that you would like to make.
Real quick, I have a question in chat from Kimberly. Kimberly asks, what hook size should we be using? Is there a particular one, or is it just anything that you have will work?
So that's a great question. Whichever was ordered for you, you can use that. However, I can show you in the back of your skein, this or hank, this is a hank. It's wrapped up like this, and then this is a skein.
I think you might have to pause sharing for showing.
Here you go. So I have a hank, which looks like this. And then this is a skein, which is like wrapped up in like an oblong shape. And if you were to look at the labels, let's see if you could see it. The labels usually show you, sometimes they might not if it doesn't have a label, but like this one is telling me that for a hook size, a USA H8 or a 5 millimeter. And hooks come in different sizes. I have a wide range of them depending on the yarn. But if it doesn't say what it is, whatever you have should work. The hook sizes are actually how big the gaps are going to be in your project. So a lot of people will actually use hooks that aren't necessarily specifically the ones that are on the label. Either they want the holes to be bigger in the project or it to be very tight. So it depends on how loose and tight you want it. But what you have is good for today since this is an introduction and we're just going to start out. All right, I'm going to go back to my screen share. All right. So just a basic overview. Crochet is a process of creating textiles by using a crochet hook to interlock loops of yarn, thread, or strands of other materials. And it comes from the French term crochet, which means hook. So pretty convenient. And I have pictures of the different sizes as well, that just like the ones I have in my package. Sometimes they will say 5 millimeter or 6 millimeter. Sometimes they'll say JH, depending on if it's numerical or alphabetical. And then if it is alphabetical, it just goes from smallest to largest, and it corresponds with the millimeter hooks as well. And a lot of the times people confuse crocheting with knitting because they see a ball of yarn and think that it is knitting. So the main difference is that for knitting, you keep all of your stitches on the needle. So when you're like knitting with the needles, you'd have all the stitches going down the needle. And for crocheting, you always have one stitch that's constantly on your hook. And then for today, we'll be using the crochet hook and a skein of yarn, which you should have all gotten. And I also have a little diagram. I had said that one of my yarns I showed you was a hank. That means it's just loosely wound up in that form. A skein is a ball, which looks like a lot of you have it in more of like the oblong ball shape. And then there's just a ball where it is circular. And then there's also a cake form, which is when you have it wrapped up on a winder and it turns into, doesn't really look like a cake, but it is wound up kind of more in like an, I would say, a cylinder type shape. So I also wanted to play this video just to show you where the yarn comes from, because a lot of the times you just go to the store and you find the yarn that you want, and there is yarn that's acrylic yarn, and then there's also wool yarn. So the one that I showed you that's in the hank that was wrapped up long is merino wool, which means it comes from merino sheep. And I thought it'd be interesting to watch this video from the beginning to the end to see how raw sheep wool goes into finished yarn. I might bounce around in it since it's a little bit long, but hopefully we'll be able to see it. This is the raw wool that she's putting in the bags to clean. They come from Norwegian sheep. And then she's spinning it to get any of the extra moisture out. So she's separating the top coat and the undercoat by brushing it out. And so there's a lot of brushing, a lot of pulling, making sure the fibers are flexible enough to be turned into the yarn. She's got a really big piece. She's winding it up. Now she's winding up a different color of wool. So the skeins that I had mentioned, that's what she's doing right now. She is wrapping it up. And depending if it's going to be long or small will depend if it's a hank or a skein. And she's tying it just to keep it together. Which when you buy yarn in a hank form, it usually has those tied off pieces still on it. You just cut those off when you spin it into a cake. I'm washing it one more time. The cat's also helping. And there it is. So for that, it looks like the one I had shown you, that it's in a hank form wound up. And a couple of fun things about getting yarn is that you can get them from sheep, of course, but there's also long-haired rabbits that a lot of people will spin yarn from. I've also seen people spin yarn from their Maine Coon cats that they've gotten fur from. So there are many options when it comes to buying yarn, and there's also machines that do it, and there's people who do it by hand like this woman in the video, and it's a whole world to explore.
Hey, Miss Rachel, it looks like there were a couple of people who were talking at the end about how they couldn't see the video. Could you maybe post a link in the chat to the video so that they can go back and watch it later?
Yes, when I stop sharing, I'll make sure to send that link to you in the chat.
Great, thank you.
And now we get to do the fun part. Is we're going to start doing the crocheting, and the 3 words I'm going to be using are slip knot, chain, and crochet. So these are the basics, and like I said, once you know the basics, you will be able to learn how to do it through other videos, through patterns. As long as you know the foundation, that's all you need. I actually started crocheting about, I would say, 5 months ago. I was a knitter my whole life. I only did knitting, and then I was determined to learn how to crochet. And it took some time, but as long as you know the basics, that's all you need. So a slip knot is the starting knot for your project. The slip knot essentially keeps your project from falling off in the beginning. And I'll show you how to do all of these as well. So I'm just going over the wording. And then a chain is what starts your project. This is essentially the foundation that you build your project on. So you have the chain and then everything else goes onto the chain. And then crochet is the type of fiber art that we're doing, but also that's what they call it for the stitch that we use. So there's single crochet, double crochet, triple crochet. We'll learn how to do single crochet, and then to do double and triple, all you do is do it a couple more times in the same chain. But we won't get to that today because I said it was an introduction. But basically, the crochet is a type of stitch, and that is how many times you do the stitch within the chain. And the chain is your foundation, and the chain starts after you do the slip knot. So it all builds onto each other. So now I am ready to begin, and I have pictures of a scarf because scarves are really easy. It's a good first project. I am not going to chain that much for a scarf. To chain for a scarf is probably would be, depending how wide you want it, would probably be about 40 chains. But I'm going to do just 10 just to have everyone get comfortable with crocheting. So I'm going to stop sharing. Exit out of this. And all right. Okay. So we're going to start. We have our, does anyone remember? Our yarn, and if it's in this type of form where it's like an oblong, it's called a. So the hank is the long version, yes. And then there's also a skein. Yes, great. Okay. And then we have our hooks. This is, I have the 5mm. It's my favorite one because it's kind of in the middle, but whatever you have works for what you have right now. And now we're going to start with the slip knot. And I am going to do this a couple of times for people to be able to see it. I unfortunately don't have an overhead camera like our teachers, so it might be a little bit tricky to see it. But this is also being recorded, so you can always come back, pause the video on YouTube, try it out, try it again, and we are going to start. Okay, so you want to take some of the yarn so that you have a long tail. It's going to be our tail. And we're going to do our slip knot. So what I like to do for slip knots is I put 2 fingers and then I wrap it around. And then I'm going to put my hook down because you don't need your hook right now. And then I put this through where I take my fingers out and I push this through my fingers. So I have like a circle. Here, let me see if I can. Like a circle. And I'll do it this way so you can see. And then I push it through. Kind of looks like an A. And then it will tie. Whoop. I dropped it, so I have to do it again. Kind of looks like an A. And then you just pull on it. And it's okay if the loop is big, because you'll be able to actually pull it and make it smaller. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to wrap it around my fingers, push it through the hole, make that A, and then just pull on it. And I'll do it one more time. You take that around your fingers, push it through, make that A, and then pull on it. All right. Does anybody need me to do that one more time? Okay, yeah, I can do it one more time. So you have your tail, which is that one, and then this one's connected to your yarn. And then wrap it around your fingers. Have it wrapped around. And then remove your fingers. You can hold the top. And then you're going to pull it through that circle. And then you can just pull on the tail to close it up, to tighten it. Do one more time. Okay. So around your fingers, you can hold the top like this if it's easier. And then you're going to put the yarn that's connected to your skein or hank. You're going to put it through the circle. Have it going to look kind of like an A. And then you're going to pull on the tail. So I think I have a question. It doesn't matter which side the yarn goes through the hole. It does not. As long as you get a knot and have it tied here, if it comes through the other side, that's fine too. Essentially, you just need it to be tight enough and that way, and have this loop for your slip knot. Again, okay, I will do it one more time and then we will move on to the next part. So, wrap it around your fingers. Hold the top. Have the yarn that is attached to your ball or skein or hank go through. And then pull on the tail. All right, now you grab your hook and you put it right into that hole. And like I said, that sometimes this might be very loose, it might be too big and too loose. That's okay. If you don't have a hook, you can just follow for now. And then once you get one, you can revisit the video on YouTube and then do the rest. So grab your hook, put it through the hole, and then pull on your yarn on both sides to tighten it. Don't make it too tight because you need it to come off the hook later on, but just tight enough if it's too big. I leave a little bit of room. I am using a 5mm, which I think is an I if you have it alphabetically. So like I said, your slip knot is the first thing. So that's the very first thing you do in crochet is you make a slip knot. This slip knot is going to hold the rest of your project. So now we're going to go on to chains. And like I said, chains are the foundation. The rest of your project works on top of the chains. Spencer, we are making a scarf, but I'm just going to do 10 chains instead of like 40 chains that you usually do for a scarf. So this is just an introduction, and then you can make it as wide as you want it to be. The chain makes it wide, and then the crochet makes it long. So that's your length is the crochet, and then the chain we're doing now is your width. Okay, so here's my hook. Here is my yarn. I'm holding the yarn that's attached to the ball that I have, the skein. Sometimes it's easier for me to take my fingers and hold the tail down so I don't get confused, because you want to wrap the yarn that's attached to your skein around the hook. So for the chain, you wrap it around. That's all you do, just wrap it around. We'll do it again. Trying to face it towards you so you can see. And here's where I hold this so I don't lose it. And all I do is, you'll see it creates like a kind of like a little snake coming up. And I'm just going to use that hook to pull the yarn through the first loop we made, the slip knot. I'm going to do it a couple of times. So here's my hook. Wrap it around the hook. Hold on to the tail so it doesn't get, you don't confuse it. And then just pull what you have on your hook through the first hole that you made. I'll do it again. I'm going to do these a couple of times because, like I said, once you get this down, then you are good to go. You can crochet whatever you would like. You can learn different patterns. You can learn how to make different characters and blankets and sweaters and whatever you'd like. So once again, we're going to do the chain. So you wrap it around. Grab a hold of that tail so you don't confuse it. And then just pull it through into the hole that you have. Okay. We'll do it one more time. I'm going to hold on to that tail. See, it like slips and slides when I don't hold on to the tail. Okay. So around the hook, and then through, using that hook through the hole. And guess what? That's what you do for the width. So if you were to make a scarf, you would do this 39 more times. If you are doing something smaller like we are today, we'll make a very thin scarf, beginnings of a thin scarf. We are going to do 10 of these, okay? So just like I did the first one where I put it through the slip knot, I'm going to just wrap it again and through the hole. And remember I said that crocheting is always, you always have one live stitch on the hook, so you always have one that's left that stays on there. So I'm going to do a couple more because I'm going to do 10 of these just so you could see the next step. Let's see. 6, 7, 9, and 10. Okay, so I have 10. These are 10 chains. So like I said, yes, to confirm, we're just doing 10 for right now because I want to make sure I teach the beginnings. If you then want to go and do it 40 chains on your own to start your scarf, you are more than welcome to. So now what do we have left? We have our 10 chains. And then we have our live stitch on the hook. So for our crochet, which I said was also a crochet stitch, not what we're doing, which is also crochet. Gets a little confusing sometimes. We are going to begin building the length of our scarf. And the way that we do that is essentially what you've just been doing, is putting your hook through the hole, wrapping it around, bringing it back through the hole. So if you were to take a look, if you're working on this along with me, you'll notice that they're like little V's. Each chain looks like a little V. You are going to take your hook and push it through this V, which is like the second one from your hook. So not the one that your hook's attached to, but the second one. And you're going to just push it through. And if you need to help with your fingernails, that's what I usually do. See, I'm pushing. All I'm doing is just pushing my hook through the second chain from my hook. I'll do that again. You'll take it, push your, see if you can do it from this side. And you're just going to push it through your second chain. Here it comes out. So for when you start with chains, you don't have to close it. That's when you start on the second row, you close it. So right now, all we're doing is we did 10 chains. I have my live stitch on the hook. I take my hook and push it through the second V, the second chain from it. So now you should have 2 of these on your hook. Then you wrap it around just like we did for the first part. And you pull it through both. Because remember, we need to always have one, just one on our hook. And then you do the same thing for your second one. You go to the next chain. Don't skip any this time, just go to the next one. Have 2 on here. Grab it, pull it through. Grab it, pull it through. So instead of going through one, just like we did with our slip knot in the beginning, we're going through both. So next chain. Wrap it around and pull it through both of these. And then you'll start seeing that you are starting to add on. So see how mine is turning into kind of like a little blob type thing? And then once again, that's all you do this time is you just grab it, push it through. All you do is push your hook through, bring it out, wrap it, and then pull it through. So I am going to finish up my 10, doing all 10 of these so you can see what it looks like once we have all 10. And then I'll tell you what to do when you start your second row. And then you'll be good to go. So I'm just going to do this a little bit quicker, just so I can show you what it looks like. See, I did my stitch too tight, so that's a little hard to. Pull it through and then pull it through both of these. Okay. I'm taking my hook off just so you could see it. You can keep your hook in, but see it's starting to build on top of it. Because now we're building this way. We're building lengthwise rather than widthwise. And someone said, what about closing it? Which is a great question, because you'll see that once you have multiple rows, you get to the point where there are 2 of these stitches at the end of the row. And what you do is you just do a chain stitch, which we learned was you wrap it around and just pull through. And that closes it. Do it this way so you can see. And that closes it up. After that, you're ready to start your other row. And all you do is you just turn your hook this way. I just took it out, turned it around, and now I'm ready to start again. And it's the same thing where you see how the top of this is also look like our chains. The V's are at the top. You're doing the same thing where you are putting your hook through that V, wrapping the yarn around, and pulling it through both hooks. And I'm going to do both crochets, not both hooks, both crochets. I'm going to, so through, around, bring it up, and then pull it through. So I'm going to do the rest of this so that you could see. And I'm actually, after I finish this row, I am going to put in a few links into the chat of my favorite YouTube tutorials, which actually taught me how to crochet. They have the nice overhead cameras, so you'll be able to practice alongside with them. But this is just a basic overview. Let me finish this row. And if you're interested in this or want to take classes or want to learn more, there are different fiber festivals all throughout Pennsylvania. There's one in August here in Pittsburgh at the Doubletree Hotel. There was one last month in Fayette County, the Fayette County Fiber Festival. So you can also take a look with your parents to see if there's a fiber festival nearby where you can see live demonstrations of the yarn being spun, try it out yourself, and also take classes from other people. But those are great places to learn. I also learned a lot from them when I went. Okay, so here I am with my 3 rows. And everything we learned today, all you do is just repeat it over and over and over again until you get whatever you want it to get. If you want it to be super long, you can just keep working on it and making it super long. If you want it to be wide, then you would just make more chains at the start. So those are the basics. That is the tiniest scarf, beginnings of a scarf. But you can always, this is my favorite word, which is what happens when you are, say, don't want to do the project. You want to start over. This scarf is too small for me. I need to make it wider. So I'm going to pull, and this is called frogging, which is my favorite word in crocheting. When you take apart what you've crocheted, it's called frogging. And I just pulled it, and then I'm ready to reuse the yarn and start it over with it again. And I am going to see if anyone in the chat wants to ask questions. You're welcome to. I'm going to mute myself for just a moment to get you the YouTube videos that I used that really helped me.
So yes, if you guys have any questions for Miss Rachel, let's go ahead and put them in the chat now. Let's all say thank you, Miss Rachel, for doing a great tutorial. And I know some of you guys were having some trouble figuring things out. As a reminder, the YouTube link will go up later, and practice makes perfect. You're not going to be doing anything right away. You have to take the time to work on it, and you'll get better over time. It's hard at first, and then it gets a lot easier as you figure it out.
Yes, how did I learn this? It is hard. It took me many years to even try to attempt it. Like I said, I knitted my whole life. I decided to give crocheting a chance. I started 5 months ago, and YouTube really helped me. So I'm posting a couple of extra videos of the step-by-step instructions and the basics for you to review from other people. Maybe their videos might be better because you get to see it with the overhead projector and much slower. And it takes, like Mr. Isaac said, it takes lots of practice. I have made some very ugly scarves when I first started, and ended up frogging them and using them for other projects. But it takes practice. And then now I just sit and watch Netflix, and I can do it without looking at it. So you just got to keep at it.
And in addition to YouTube videos and tutorials, there are also definitely books that you can go to your local library and get if you like to read.
And sometimes there's craft stores that have little workshops for kids. And they have, you know, their shop employees will go through and do lessons and give you more tips and tricks. Someone put in Barnes and Noble. Their Barnes and Noble has a crocheting workshop apparently. So, you know, it's definitely, it's an art form, right? And some of us, you know, have a more preference or are drawn to drawing or painting or pottery. Some of us are drawn to the performing arts, right? Singing and dancing and acting. And some of us are drawn to the handicrafts, like the woodworking and the crocheting and the fancy stitching with cross stitch and designing and sewing fabulous costumes and dresses and all sorts of things. So again, there's so many different forms of art. You just have to find the one that fits you, right? And, you know, I love crocheting. I wish that I was better at crocheting. I know how to crochet one thing, and it's those little coasters. But, you know, I have our school mascot here. One of our high school teachers was kind enough to crochet some of our super squirrel chandlers. So here's my little crochet as a gift from one of our high school teachers. All right. Did somebody have their hand up? No. Okay. Yeah, someone has their wonderful anime in there. Yeah. All right.
All right, well, I'm not seeing a whole lot of questions. So on behalf of all of our families, friends, and PA Virtual, thank you so much for Miss Rachel for sharing your knowledge with us. And thank you to everyone who has been here today. A recording of the session will be available on our YouTube page within the next week. You'll also get an email from us letting you know how to get more information about our school and info about other summer camp sessions. If you're not a member of our PA Virtual family, you can feel free to get in touch with us. We'll give you some more information and or your parents some more information as the case may be. And we can talk about how the school works and go over any questions that anybody might have. You can also request information in that email that we're sending out if that's easiest for you. I hope you guys had a ton of fun, and we look forward to seeing you at our session tomorrow. Bye-bye.